here on this video, we have Wes Dellinger with us. Wes, go ahead and introduce yourself, your company, and then the services that you provide.
Hi, thank you, Luke. I appreciate the opportunity. Wes Dellinger with Opus One of Greater Houston. Opus One is a financial services firm that's been based out of Texas since 1947. It's a part of a bigger Fortune 250 company called Guardian, and down here I'm the president of the operation that covers the Greater Houston area.
And so, tell me, Wes, how you got involved with Hire Faster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was discussing a need that I had with a good friend of mine, someone you and I both know who's near and dear to us, Mr. Dallas Pip, who's a longtime friend of the family. And Dallas is always someone who's staying on top of current events and resources. And so I know if I have a question, I can call him and he'll have some type of heady answer because he's so engaged. And he said, well, it's funny you should ask this, Wes, because we've got a tool here that we've actually developed that I think could be applicable to what you're looking for. And that's kind of how it started.
So what was going on with your business and Opus One that kind of caused you to start looking for recruiting and hiring help? Was it, maybe you felt like you couldn't grow unless you hired more people? Was it just, you needed more assistance with what you were doing? What was going on that caused you to reach out for some hiring and recruiting help?
So it's a amalgamation of things because in the financial services profession in general, it has an aged population, and there are more people coming out of the profession retiring than there are new people coming in, and so there's a huge need for new talent, new blood in our profession. It's an old axiom in the profession that your ability to recruit won't necessarily ensure your future, but your inability to recruit will absolutely guarantee your failure. And so recruiting is priority number one, especially for folks that are in the role I am, which is leading and growing a firm, and particularly here, this office, we started it brand new scratch in September of 2020, because there's no better time to start something new than in the middle of a pandemic. But if you think about the pandemic and you think about things, whereas in the past, the financial services profession had that opportunity to work remotely, to make your own schedule, that what we now know as a hybrid. It was unique pre-COVID. Post-COVID, it's not nearly as unique as it was before. And so, there's no thing of what got us here won't necessarily get us there. And so we've got to think differently. We have to think uniquely. And I love the concept of systematize before you optimize. And that's what really led me to you all and to Hire Faster in regard to, I knew that if I kept trying to do things the way I was doing them, I was going to just work myself into the ground. There's only so much I can do, and there's only so much that I can leverage technology for based on my understanding of technology and understanding of what's available out there. And so what was presented to me through Hire Faster was a way to better systematize what I was looking to do and do so in a way that was, cost effective. It fit the budget that I was looking for. It fit the creative aspect of what I was looking for. It was not cookie cutter. And it just worked. It works for me. And I'm happy to share more about that.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the problem was that, you've got a ton of things on your plate, right? You're not just hiring people, you're trying to grow your business.
Right.
And so you're trying to manage, every single application that comes in and sitting down and emailing all of them. And so that was part of your problem, was that's taking up a lot of your time, but now it sounds like that's not a problem anymore. Is that right?
It's everybody has a value for your time. Your time is the most valuable thing you have, and it's in limited quantities. And what I found was I was spending a lot of time doing tasks that aren't the best and highest use of my time. And that's what we always have to be doing. And we've constantly got to be refining that. And so Hire Faster allowed me to delegate to technology things that I'm not saying they weren't worthy of my time, they just weren't the best use of my time. And if I could find a way to systematize that in a way that still works the way I want it to and in the manner with which I think it deserves, then why wouldn't I want to delegate that out? Why wouldn't I want to systematize that so that I can focus not so much on tasks and processes, but focused on what I'm the best at, which is focusing on the people themselves.
So right before you started working with us, talk a little bit about, what did your recruiting and hiring process look like? I mean, were you, every day sitting down and looking at new applicants that were coming in and replying, and then, trying to follow up with them? Just kind of talk a little bit about the process before you started working with us.
Sure, there were huge blocks of time on my calendar that I had to block them off. I had to hold them sacred. And I had to shut the door and kind of almost turn people away, because that was my focus time to source applicants and then to go through and re-review people who had shown an interest, following up on communications, trying to manage the calendar, schedule appointments with folks. Are these going to be Zoom? So if there's Zoom, setting up the Zoom, sending out the meeting invite, just all the stuff. All the death by 1,000 cuts. And literally I would spend hours a day doing that.
So talk about what our team really put in place for you and how that changed your recruiting process and your hiring process, and just kind of talk about what you saw as the result of that.
I'm grinning because it almost feels like cheating, because all those things that I was doing, which by the way, I believe and know that I'm really good at those things. And I think I do them in a way that's unique enough to where people are willing to respond to me that maybe they wouldn't respond to other folks. And I've always had a fear of letting go of that. I'm not the best delegator in the world. So the fear of letting go of that and for fear of not having the same effect, A, just pride of ownership, and then B, the thought of, well, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. If this happens to do better. Well, it seems to have all come together in exactly the way I would have dreamed it. Because what happens is I'm still identifying people, but Hire Faster is also helping me sort through those people a little bit more efficiently, because I am a positive poly. I see an opportunity in everyone. And I'm not saying we can't give everyone a chance, but there were some that I was probably giving an opportunity to where I knew better, that I was really trying to turn something into a Cinderella story. And so the system A is helping me sort through people more efficiently, but B, from the automation of follow-ups, of getting meetings scheduled, of meeting confirmations, the follow-up after the fact, all those things being automated, but how's the best way to put it? Not just blanket automation that's stale and robotic and vanilla. No, it has personality to it, to where literally these applicants believe they're talking to a real live person, and have actually, in some cases, formed in their minds a relationship with the person. And so I think that's great, because we've taken me as the human element out of it, but we haven't lost the human element. And I think that's one of the greatest differentiators that we still have, frankly.
And so now that you've got Hire Faster in place, you've got some time back on your schedule, you've got a system now, just talk about how that's impacted your business, Opus One, and how that's impacted you personally.
It's allowed me to not feel guilty about not being in the office. I would say that first and foremost. It's allowed me to, frankly, brag a little bit. I remember being at a conference recently down in Florida, and I was just sitting there with one of my business partners and a couple other friends from across the country, and I'm grinning, and they're like, "Why are you grinning?" And I hold up my phone, and it's an email and a text from Hire Faster. New appointment scheduled, new interview scheduled. I think literally that day I was in it's like a 2-hour session, and I had 4 interviews scheduled, and I didn't do a thing. I didn't do anything other than accept the invite. And to me, that's powerful, and it's reassuring. You know, a business owner, you know, I was always taught at a young age by the mentors that I had that a business owner's greatest fear is what's happening when he or she is not there. And I don't have that fear so much now from a recruiting standpoint, because before I thought, well, if I'm not doing it, it's not happening. Well, now it's happening whether I'm here or not. And for that, I'm eternally grateful.
So what would you say to someone who maybe has talked to us, they're kind of on the fence, they're not really sure if they want to proceed with Hire Faster? What would you say to someone who's in that position?
You know, I love stories, Luke, and so I'll share a quick story. Years ago, this was probably 20 years ago, I got the chance to have lunch with Mark Cuban, with a couple other business owners. And this is way before Shark Tank, but he was still Mark Cuban, billionaire and owner of the Mavericks. And one of the guys in our group asked him, he said, "What do you look for when you're looking through a business plan?" And he said, I go to the business plan and I highlight all the words that end in or est, like biggest, faster, better. He said, if I see too many of those words, I take that plan and I throw it away, because there's nothing unique about that. Because just because you're fastest today doesn't mean somebody else won't be faster tomorrow. And so even though the name of the company is Hire Faster and the tool, I would submit to you that it's so much more than the faster part. It's the backside of how Hire Faster gets to being faster. And that part is the human element of the way you all work with me personally, to make sure that the language being used is in alignment with me as a person, so that there's no gap. I know what's being said is the same thing that would be said if it were me saying it directly. So that's what I would say. I would say, don't get caught up in the faster part. I would say get caught up in the human element that's on the backside that you all uniquely provide, that uniquely differentiates you from other tools and other systems, perhaps, in the regard that, yeah, we're going to get you there faster, but the way we're going to do that overall, I believe, at least, and it has been the case in my scenario, it's been more efficient and it's been more effective. And neither one of those words end in or s.
Wes, thank you. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you would like to add on the end of this? Any other thoughts that you had that maybe I didn't really get to in a question that I asked?
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I would assume that the people that are going to hear this are, you know, somewhere in the same position as me, and a lot of those people are going to be just like me, where you're not the greatest delegator in the world, and you have a lot of pride of ownership in what you're doing, because you wouldn't be doing it unless you thought you were, you know, one of the absolute, you know, best people at it. But again, back to est and words, that you may be the best, but that doesn't mean you might not be able to do it more efficiently and more effectively. And that's where Hire Faster can really jump in and lend you a hand.
Thank you so much, Wes, for your time, for this video testimonial. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and thank you all. I really appreciate you.